I'm going to Hallettsville. Yes, I'm going to Hallettsville. We're gonna fill all night and drink a little beer, have a good time while we're here in Hallettsville. There's a big induction. Glad y'all all could make it here. I'm really proud of these three people that are going to go in. And we have some bios that Marshall and I are going to read. And I'm going to let the great and famous Marshall Stockton begin us off here with the first inductee.
Is this mic on? Okay. I'm going to read for Shara Fryer, and I'm very honored to do that. Shara Fryer marks his 2019 Texas State Championship Fiddle Frolics as her 49th year of participation. As a supporter and co-host of the greatest fiddlers in the country who annually make a trek to Hallettsville for 3 days of fierce competition, it is very much a family thing. Her parents, Cliff and Velda Fryer, were co-founders of the contest in 1971. And put Shara and their son John Stewart to work as they organized the musical competition and played personal host to fiddlers and their families. The annual Saturday night jam session during the contest would draw as many as 300 people to the Fryer household for the home-cooked big feed and celebration, with music flowing in every room and in the yard all around till the wee hours of the morning. Tunes upon tunes, Shara says, and musicians of all ages, reflecting a Texas heritage and fiddling culture that enriched our lives. These folk, too numerous to name, became our family and important to all of our life events. Look around the Hall of Fame. We remember each and every one. Her own earliest fiddle memory is of her dad playing Red Wing, Texas-style fiddlings and breakdowns she heard for the first time when the Fryers moved to Texas in 1962. It was a contest in Ezell. Soon the Fryers were attending contests all over the state, developing friendships that brought the best to the Hallettsville for the state championship. Over the decades, as the Knights of Columbus kept growing events for the contest weekend, the Fryers also helped in that expansion, like initiating the 10K run known as the Fiddler's Frolics Foot Race to draw hundreds of newcomers and tourists to the contest. Shara remains a tireless promoter. As a 40-year veteran television newscaster in Austin, San Antonio, and Houston, she has introduced audiences all across the state to Hallettsville and the Texas State Championship. She continues to do so on Houston's Morning News, on News Radio 740 KTRH. Shara also steps up as a sponsor each year, underwriting the cash prizes in the Velda and Cliff Fryer Championship round for the Texas title. Shara says, "It's a privilege to have played a part. I am very grateful to the champions and the contest, Hallettsville and the Knights of Columbus, who have built this incredible legacy." Congratulations, Shara.
That's very nice, Marshall. Very good, buddy. Hopefully I can do half as good a job as you just did. That's wonderful. Congratulations, Shara. Well, I get the honor of reading through Tom McDaniel's bio here that he wrote. Tom, I haven't had a chance to read this. I hope you don't have really big words. I'm really from the country, so I'm going to do my best. If the words are more than 10 letters, I'll have to work on it a little bit. With your permission, Tom McDaniel's life changed in a significant way in the fall of 1967 when he began classes at UCLA, and by the luck of the draw, Stuart Fryer, the great and famous, drew the dormitory room next to Tom, and upon graduating from Hallettsville in high school, Stuart wanted to experience life in the big city and ventured west to UCLA. Tom, raised in an Air Force family, lived in several southern states and was exposed early on to country music, and he and Stuart quickly became friends. Stuart exposed Tom to a treasure trove of Texas-style fiddling recordings by Major Franklin, Benny Thompson, and Dick Barrett. A year in the big city was enough for Stewart, so he headed back to Texas. I love that part. And he invited Tom to come visit and get a sense of the Fryer family's involvement in the fiddling community. The very next weekend, Tom headed to Texas, where he was welcomed with open arms by Cliff, Velda, Stewart, and Shara Fryer in a room full of fiddle players. Tom was immediately hooked on the music and the fiddle community. I understand that too. Tom returned year after year, attending the Fiddler's Frolics and gaining a passion for the Frolics' goal of keeping the tradition of Texas-style fiddle music alive and flourishing for future generations. Although Tom can't play a lick of music, he has lent his support to the Fiddler's Frolics in many ways, including adding the out-of-state competition to the contest, which we saw yesterday and how good that was. Expanding the influence of Texas-style fiddle well beyond the Texas border. In 2002, he bought the TR Ranch, and with Stewart and Shara Fryer's help, they began turning the ranch not only into a working cattle ranch, but a place where musicians of all forms can create and play music. And in honor of Clifford Fryer's Fiddler's Bunkhouse, Tom built a bunkhouse and performance venue at the ranch so that musicians would always have a safe place to play, write, and perform their music. In the past 2 years, Tom has hosted a welcoming barbecue and jam session at the ranch for fiddlers and accompanists rolling into Hallettsville well before the competition begins, right? We get started early for this thing every year. In 2006, Kenneth Henneke, Mike Stroop, and Stewart thought it was a good idea to expand the Fiddler's Frolics to include a competition to support the Texas heritage of performing singer-songwriters. The Songwriter Serenade was launched. Tom has been instrumental in making it one of the premier songwriter competitions in the country. The songwriters selected to participate compete for prize money and industry exposure and put on a fantastic show for the judges and audience. The Songwriter Serenade has become a valuable stepping stone in the careers of hundreds of songwriters. In 2012, longtime Fiddler Frolics participants Tanya Rast Hopkins, Roberta Rast Smith, and Heidi Lebensart Ludeker approached Tom about hosting a fiddle camp at the ranch for advanced musicians wanting to learn from the very best teachers of differing styles. Thus, the Live Oak Fiddle Camp was launched, and a 4-day camp has been a tremendous success, with many alumni now playing professionally on tour. And I've even been lucky enough to be able to teach at that every year. I really appreciate that, Tom. In 2015, Phoebe Hunt, alumni of the Fiddler's Frolics and also a winner of the 2012 Songwriter Serenade, approached Tom about hosting a songwriter retreat for veterans. And there's one of them big words. Is it Reveille or Revel? Reveille? I know, it's a big word, I'm telling you. The Reveille Songwriter Retreat is now in its 4th year. The 6-day retreat held at the TR Ranch brings together acclaimed songwriters to coach and mentor 20 veterans to transform their experiences into song. The music created at the retreat is recorded and provides participants with a great sense of achievement and hopefully a career in music. Tom has also hosted nearly 50 concerts in California, where Tom lives when not at the ranch, for predominantly Texas-based musicians on tour. Tom's wife, Pat, daughter Erin, and son Tommy, and their families are enthusiastic supporters of the Fiddler's Frolics. When not involved with his musical interests, Tom has had a long and diverse business career as an executive and a director of companies involved in power generation, solar energy, energy efficiency, and oil and gas storage and transportation. Y'all welcome Tom. We appreciate you, Tom, very much. Is there another one? Yeah. There it is. It's quite a row of people here. It's pretty cool. Our next inductee is Marty Elmore, a friend of mine since we first started playing, right? Marty and I are about a month apart in age, and we've literally grown up together, playing fiddles together. It's kind of cool. Marty actually, before I get reading into this, for me, it's kind of cool. He sent me a newspaper clipping of a Fort Worth contest. You remember sending me that? And it was he and I and a girl named Linnell Hobson, who was at that time kicking our butts in these contests. And she'd won first, I'd won second, and he'd won third. And on the bill, on the top of it, you know, I was too young to even realize what I was seeing was Major Franklin and Sleepy Johnson had won the old group, and I was like 12, and I didn't know what I was seeing at the time. You know, but that just shows how long that we've been together with all this. Marty Elmore was born on November 6, 1962 in Fort Worth, Texas, and was the fifth of 6 kids that belonged to James and Glee Elmore. My father, and I'm saying this in the person of Marty Elmore, he wrote it in the first person. My father was a machinist. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and we lived in Lake Worth, Texas until March of '72 when we moved to Joshua, Texas. I was in the 3rd grade when we moved, and we finished school in Joshua, graduating in 1981. I guess the music came from both sides of my family, although neither of my parents played. On my mom's side of the family, her father and brothers played, and on my dad's side, his older brother played. So the music gene was in me. It was just a matter of whether I would take interest in playing or not. Lucky for me, my older brother, Randy, played the fiddle, and Randy, being 8 years older than me, was already an accomplished player and had won many contests before I started playing. So I grew up going to fiddle contests all over Texas before I started playing. My parents would take Randy to the contests, and all the siblings would go too. It was just a matter of time before the bug bit me and made me want to learn to play the fiddle also. I was 10 years old when I learned my first fiddle tune, Rubber Dolly. Oddly enough, my brother Randy didn't teach it to me, my sister Debbie did. From there, I started learning a few more tunes and competed in my first contest in 1973 in Alvarado. And I still go to the Alvarado contest every year. It's one of the longest running contests in the state, and it's still one of my favorites. Randy started teaching me fiddle tunes, but I didn't take fiddling too serious until this encounter happened. I was at the Texas Old Time Fiddler Association State Contest in Burnet, Texas, 1975, and I was talking to my old friend, Robert Langford, who was 2 years older than me and already a good fiddle player. And I asked him, I said, how many tunes do you know? And he said, about 100. He said, I was floored. He said, I couldn't believe that he could play 100 tunes. And at that point, my goal became to learn as many tunes as I could possibly learn, and that was the turning point for me. I wanted to learn 100 tunes and then some. And I also wanted to be able to sit down in a jam session and play for hours and only quit because I wanted to, not because I ran out of tunes. At that point, I started to go and see Randy as often as I could. He played on the road at that time and was not home very often, but when he was, I'd call him and ask him if he would teach me a tune. He always said yes. And as I think back on it, he probably would have rather spent time with his family instead of teaching the fiddle tune, but he always said yes. I met Benny Thompson at a fiddle contest in Arlington, 1977, and he gave me his name and address and told me to come see him, and so I did. My dad took me to Benny's house on 2 different occasions, and though I wish I could have gone more, I'm grateful for the 2 times that I did get to go. Benny is still my all-time favorite fiddle player and always will be. When I learned how to drive, I would go see Bill Gilbert in Millsap, Texas. He lived about 50 miles from Joshua, where I lived. And Bill would teach me tunes and work on my bow arm, correcting me when I was bowing it backwards. The very first time I went to Bill's house, he taught me 8 tunes, and I had to drive home praying that I wouldn't forget them. In those days, teachers didn't write tunes down on paper. They taught you knee to knee, and you just had to learn and remember them. Bill also taught me something else that I didn't realize at the time. He told me that when playing breakdowns, you play each part twice, and the second time you play it, you change it a little bit. And when I asked him, what do I change? He said, that was up for me to figure out. He would teach me tunes, and then it was my job to add to it by making up my own little hot lick or listening to other fiddlers and learn different ways to play the tune. He said every fiddle player plays these tunes differently, and you take what you like, and you don't take what you don't like. What I didn't realize at the time was that Bill was really teaching me how to be a Texas fiddle player. He was teaching me how to play like the pioneers of Texas fiddling played, with variation. Though he didn't teach me the variations, I was expected to vary the tunes on my own. So I went home and I started listening to albums and records and tapes and learning variations. Randy was a big help because I would still go see him when he was home. I'd play him a new tune that I'd learned, and he would show me another way to play it. So when I was a teenager, there was approximately 70 to 80 contests per year in Texas. So we had plenty of places to go and play and jam every weekend. Due to health reasons, my dad was unable to take me to all the contests, so Tommy and Elsie Berger drove me all over Texas during my late teens. They were instrumental and carrying me to many of the contests that I would have otherwise been unable to attend. A lot of the older great fiddle players were still going strong in the 70s, and I got to hear them at contests and jam sessions. People like Benny Thompson, Major Franklin, Claude Henson, Louis Franklin, Vernon and Norman Solomon, Orville Burns, and many, many more. All these old fiddle players have passed on, but they shaped my playing then, even though I didn't realize it, and they are still influencing me to this day. I began reading music when I was 35 years old so that I could start transcribing fiddle tunes with the hopes that some of the old ones wouldn't get lost. I try now to give back some of that knowledge and the time that was given to me by my mentors by teaching in workshops, the Elmore Fiddle Camp every summer along with my brother Randy. And for the last 20 years, I've been teaching private lessons out of my own home. I also promote fiddle playing and fiddling by directing the Chicken and Bread Days Fiddle Contest in Bowie, Texas, every October, and I have been for the last 19 years. This contest was started by my old friend Pal Stevens, and he passed it to me in 2000. It remains still one of the best contests in North Texas, and we're all proud of what we've accomplished. I married my wife Jana April 29th, 1988, and as fate would have it, our anniversary sometimes falls at the same time as the state fiddling contest in Hallettsville. And then he put in parentheses, she's very understanding. We have 2 children, Ryan and Taylor, and we like to think of Zach Stevens, Pal's grandson, as one of our own. The musical gene has been passed down to each and every one of my children, and even my wife Jana plays a few tunes on the fiddle, and she's placed in every contest she's ever entered. Like most fiddlers, my favorite part of playing the fiddle is jamming with my friends. Sitting in the middle of a circle jamming is when I feel most at home and where I do my best Texas-style fiddling. There are many fiddlers and guitar players that have been and still are an important part of my life, but the list would be so very long that I can't list them all here. I apologize to those I didn't name. This is a great honor, and I'm very humbled to be put into the hall with all my fiddle heroes, past and present, and will do my very best to honor my fiddling mentors and heroes by always promoting and teaching Texas-style fiddle. It's a very unique style, and it's a genre that's very worthy of recognition. There's just something about it that once you're bitten, you can't get enough of it. Marty Elmore, and he would like to, well, I'm not going to think that. I just helped him with it. Y'all welcome Marty Elmore to the Hall of Fame. You have those, see those other 2 real quick, if you got them. There's one, and there you go. Okay, here's what we'd like to do, if that's all right with you guys in the crowd. I'm going to induct these 2 in, and then if anybody wants to come up and play a song or share a thought about these, if you will gather over here by the side of the stage over here, we'll have y'all come up. I know Stuart Fryer wants to be the first one to come up and speak on behalf of these folks. However, by the power invested in me from Cliff Fryer and through Harvey Norris and passed down through Wade Stockton, I want to officially induct Tom McDaniel, Shara Fryer, and Marty Elmore into the Texas State Fiddler Frolics Hall of Fame. Y'all give them a big hand. And we have something for them. I just love this. I may have to go, Stuart, I may have to go find one of these for me. I love this. We have a plaque that says the Fiddlers Hall of Fame inductee, Tom McDaniel, Hallettsville, Texas, Fiddlers Frolics. Isn't this nice? Great. There you go, boss. Congratulations to you, man. You want to see, we have one here. Ah, Shara. Where'd she go? There you are. I lost you. I'm sorry. I lost you. I was getting that great. One more. Marty. Congratulations, buddy. Congratulations to you. Isn't this a great group? Stuart, would you like to come up and speak a little bit? The great and famous.
Thank you all. This is the first time, to my knowledge, that anybody who's a director of the contest, co-chairman, whatever, has ever said anything about the induction or the inductees. It's not our job to do that, but I wanted to today, and it's not because my sister's in here, and Tom's write-up was way over flattering to me. He offered me the opportunity to edit it first, and now I wish I had because it says way too much about me. But I didn't want to hear it because I thought he had the right and the need to say whatever he wanted to say. And so what I'm saying is about several people on this stage. First, you heard about Marty or in Tom's thing about the bunkhouse that my dad had. Well, that bunkhouse was inhabited mostly by the late and great Terry Morris and Marty's older brother, Mr. Randy Elmore. And my dad thought that he had them corralled in there, but they'd sneak out after my parents went to bed, and they'd go down to the domino halls here and play dominoes, drink beer, and have a good time. And that's what Hallettsville's all about. Another person on the stage who's involved in this is Marshall Stockton. In 1999, I was working a lot in Dallas area, and Marshall was up at Canton, Texas with Mary and her sister for their monthly market days in their RV, and I heard of a contest in Shreveport, Louisiana that one of the casinos sponsored. So I retrieved Marshall from Canton, and we went on over to Shreveport. We just had a ball. But it was a great contest. But I remember walking into the contest, and I never heard anybody who wasn't from Texas play a fiddle, really, because if y'all remember, it used to be to play in our contest, you had to have a Texas driver's license. And so that just really restricted it to Texans, obviously, like we tried to do, because we were the Texas State Championship. Anyway, you'll hear Dennis Ludeker, I believe, play later today. His father was Tony, the late Tony Ludeker, was playing, and as soon as we walked in, he was just warming up, jamming. I said, holy cow, this is great, and we've got to have a fiddle contest that lets out-of-state people in. So in 2000, next year, we had one, but that takes prize money, and we didn't make any money. If you look even later today in the audience, our audience keeps dwindling. You will never have a fiddle contest off the gate. You cannot sell tickets. You couldn't charge $100 a person and have a full house, really, and be able to put on this contest. So the following year, it said, hey, we just don't have the money for it. And Tom was here, and he's standing right next to me, and he says, Stuart, I got the money. And, with that, we really organized the contest. And my sister kicked in money, sister and her husband, Barry. And because of that, this contest survives. Rather than being just for Texas fiddlers and cutting down 20 on Saturday and then having the top 20 come back Sunday, which cut out a whole bunch of really good fiddlers like Ricky Turpin, who's one of our judges. Remember, once he was playing Sleep at the Wheel. Well, guess what? You know, they're not playing here in town. So he couldn't play here Saturday and Sunday. So I remember one year he played, and after we got the out-of-state contest, and we had just a Texas contest on Sunday, here comes Ricky rolling in from Fort Worth, and 12:45, just 15 minutes before the contest started. So we've really benefited by having the out-of-state, because we've got some really good contestants, got to know Junior Marriott very well, and since then we've gone to Weezer, and it's just been a wonderful thing, and we really owe it to Tom McDaniel. When he first told me that, he says, I don't want anybody to know it. So we tried to keep it a secret, but of course the cat was out of the bag in a few years, and he really deserves the acknowledgement as well as my sister, because again, we need the money. Our audience continues to almost die off. We don't have that many young people in our audience anymore. And our future is broadcasting this thing around the world. We've tried it, we've done the audio. Egan Bartels is very technically savvy, and this year we've tried the Facebook Live, but the bandwidth in Hallettsville is just horrible. during this contest. I mean, there's, thousands and thousands of people posting videos, them basting barbecue ribs outside and whatever. So we will have that, I think, next year for our 50th annual Texas State Championship Fiddlers Frolics. And I want to thank y'all for listening to me now, and I'm going to ask you to encourage you to come up with more sponsors, more donors, because that's what it takes. Kenneth Henneke does a great job of shaking things down. I'd like to acknowledge my brother-in-law, Barry Silverman, who this day put in $3,500 toward the contest in honor of his wife going in the Hall of Fame. So thank you all very much. Thank you for listening to me, and congratulations, everybody.
Very well said, Stuart. Pretty heartfelt, wasn't it? It just showed you how important these guys are to the promotion of fiddle playing and being able to put on things like this and giving a place for the kids to grow and learn this style of music. If you paid attention to that older 15 group yesterday, that was my favorite bunch of the whole day, was watch these young kids. And it's by these kinds of people that those kids are allowed, like that little knothead in the front row right there, is allowed to grow and play and learn this kind of music. So on behalf of myself as well, thank y'all so very much for all that you do.